teaching to your peers, coaching your peers is often one of the most challenging things that we do. And this episode, really talking about the level 4 course, expert coaching course, with our buddies and colleagues and all around good dudes, Ross Dunlap and Harlan Price. And I thought to kick this off, Paul, if you would just talk about what the level 4 is and give us the context around this episode.
Yeah, sure. So basically, this episode is talking about coaching expert riders, and then how the level 4 as a coach education course kind of helps empower coaches to do that. But yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, like the level 4 we started in, I think the first one I ran was 2016 or 2017. I can't quite remember now. And it's a 5-day course, and it's the awesome week of the year for me, where it's like the toughest week of the year, but also probably the best week of the year, because it's just so inspiring and so challenging. And it's 5 days of bike camp, geeking out with your peers and some just incredible riders, incredible coaches. So it's really my role or Ross's role or Jake's role when we're running the course. It's really, we become facilitators at that point, and we're just facilitating that ongoing education. And it's a really fun week. I think people come into it stressed because it's the level 4, it's the expert coach course, but ultimately they quickly realize that it's just a good time on bikes, and it's everybody trying to push their skills and learn as much as they can. And really it's designed around training experienced instructors to transition into sort of short versus long-term programs. So maybe they teach full-day privates or 2-day camps, but now they want to learn more about teaching a 4-week program or an 8-week program or a 12-week program. And then the other side is just that next level up. How do you teach, transition from teaching intermediate to advanced riders on greens, blues, maybe some single blacks, to expert riders where potentially we're coaching on any and all terrain. And how do we do that safely, effectively? How do we potentially coach riders better than ourselves? And again, through that long-term kind of timeline. So yeah, it's exciting. We just thought it'd be fun to get Harlan and Ross on and talk about Harlan's experience going through that process. And then, as a coach himself, and he recently was certified level 4 last year, I think, or the year before.
Yeah.
And then Ross's process, just learning almost like how to teach the course. He's been in that process for 3 years now. It's definitely not a course like any of the courses. You can't just pick up a book and say, "Hey, go run an instructor course." That's not what we do. So it was keen just to get maybe a bit of Ross's insight on that process for him, and just kind of talk about expert riding, expert coaching, and what we can hopefully through the podcast, like what can listeners gain from that, whether they're a rider or a coach. Hopefully there's some good insights to take away.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just kind of thinking through the topics that we unpacked here. I think regardless of where a rider or coach is on their journey towards certification, there are things to glean here. For instance, really cool conversation about honesty as a coach, and that humbleness of maybe I don't know everything, maybe let's figure this out together. And what does it take as a coach to get to the point where you can say that in a safe way, where the safety and the risk is being managed for everybody, but then also there's that vulnerability aspect to it as well, where everybody feels like it's okay to be in this space, because it's not something that you can do at all levels of coaching.
Yeah, I think that's a huge piece to it. And we dig into that a little bit. And I think, that's something I try and bring into the course, is that transparency, that like we're all experts at that stage. But that doesn't mean we're all perfect. We're all still learning. We all still make mistakes. And it's that reality and that honesty that we can all improve still. This isn't a course where people are going to tell you what to do still. It's still a course where we're just learning together.
Excellent. All right. Well, enjoy this conversation with Ross Dunlap and Harlan Price about the Level 4 Expert Coaching course.
2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Welcome to Donuts and Bikes, the mountain bike coaching podcast. Your hosts are Paul Howard and me, Christian Jackson, and we're here to discuss the skills, the techniques, and tactics we've used to train riders and coaches we've worked with over the past 20 years. In this episode, we're digging into the Global Syndicate of Mountain Bike Coaches Level 4 Expert Coaching course, what it is, why it's needed, and how it can help a coach find their next level.
Good to see you, buddy. How's things?
Things are good. Summer's cranking along and doing a lot of good summertime relaxing at this point. Kind of been a busy summer, and school starts next week. So I've been in a bit of a summer hibernation mode, trying to get ready for the next push.
That's crazy. I saw an ad on TV the other day about back to school, and I was like, no, stupid, no, way too early. So I just ignored it, and I'm in denial. We've got at least another 2 months left of summer.
Okay. Let me know how that works out.
Yeah. I'm just in complete denial. Like, we've been so busy this year, obviously, with all the stuff going on. Yesterday or the other day, I realized that, like, man, summer's gone, and I'm just not enjoying it enough. So the last few days I've been making the most of it. But
Good.
Yeah, man, back on the mic. Well, what are we doing today?
We are having a discussion about the Level 4 Expert Coaching course. And we have some special guests today, which is exciting to see. Some friends and colleagues, and really excited for this chat about the Level 4. So I thought maybe we would start with some introductions of who we've got here on our microphones, and we'll get into it. Ross, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hey everyone, I'm Ross. Thanks, firstly, for having me on. I've been a long-time listener, first-time caller. Sometimes you will stay on podcasts. So, a little bit of a brief history about me. I'm originally from Scotland. I moved to Worcester to really just follow the snowboarding and biking dream when I was, I think, 22, 23, back in 2006. And back then, I just had my level 1 snowboard cert. And, almost 20 years in now, I've been gone through all levels in both snowboarding and biking now. So it's been really fun.
Sweet. And you are one of the few instructor trainers for the Level 4 as well, correct?
Yeah, I think I've gone through that process I think it's like 4 or 5 years ago. Paul asked if I could kind of come on board to do that. And it's been really, really cool. It's always a challenge. Every course you do is always a little bit different, but I feel like when you do this course, the stakes feel higher because there's a lot expected of you as a mentor. And I don't take that lightly, but every time I do it, it helps me get better.
Cool. Harlan.
Oh yeah. Well, hey guys. Nice to see you again. Thanks for having me on as well. I'm super excited to be here. I've worked with each of you over the years, so this is kind of fun to always collaborate and chat. I'm Harlan Price. I own Take Aim Cycling down here in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. And I'm a level 3 GSMBC mentor. I am a level 4 as of a year or so ago, which was quite the journey. So I'm pretty excited to maybe illuminate some of that for folks. But I come from a racing background. I race full-time cross country. And then people kept asking me for advice on how to go faster. And true to XC mindsets, they were all asking for fitness plans. And I saw a real gap in the skills coaching area back in 2010. And I started to look for ways to talk about or, how to fill that gap. So I started getting certified and been with, you guys as my mentors, Paul, Christian, Ross. Ross is my first level 2 certification since 2015, I believe. So just been working with you guys for 10 years, a decade now, and it's been amazing for my learning along the way. So every chance I get to talk about it, great. Love it.
I think that's what's cool at this level is like, you know, I see you all as my mentors as well, and it's a cyclical thing, right? It's not a linear thing, and you know, every time I ride with you, Harlan, I'm just learning, and same with Ross and Christian. So I think that's what's cool at this level is everyone becomes everyone's mentor and everyone's inspiration, and and you just keep realizing that the more you learn, the more there is to learn, which is pretty cool. Cool. So next on the list, I thought, you know, we were chatting earlier. I was chatting earlier with Christian, but sometimes, you know, we'll get into sort of what is expert riding, what is expert coaching. We'll get into that in a little bit, but sometimes it's nice to sort of think about, like, for the coaches that are listening or for the riders that are listening, like, why do we have coaching certifications? Like, why do we need these in mountain biking? And maybe Christian, you can dig into that for us to get us going.
Yeah. So standardization of practices, you know, is one of the key reasons. If you think about hiring somebody to teach you something, you want to make sure that that person is vetted through a standardization at a large level, right? So that the content and the approach that you're getting has a proven track record. And so I think having that bigger picture value in mind when you're looking at certifications is what we're aiming for here. Plus, there's another layer there of experience. You know, so there's the process of getting certified, but then there's the experience that backs that up, and so you're gaining something more than just the certificate that's on the wall, but that, you know, that's just an outward symbol of the experience that someone has brought to the table in the first place.
Yeah, I like the way you say that too. Is it's like it's not just that you did the course and you were assessed and you got certified, but it's a reflection of your experience to get to that point, you know. And even for a level 1 coach, you can't just sort of pick up a mountain bike and go do a course and expect that you're going to pass. Like, generally speaking, for level 1s, that they've probably ridden a bike for a while. They might have volunteered as a coach, or there's a lot of experience that they tend to need before showing up for that course. And obviously that increases as you go up to level 2 coach, level 3, and obviously the level 4 coach. I mean, most people that are successful on the level 4, it's a 5-day course. But if they're going to be successful on a 5-day course, they're probably coming into it with, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years worth of coaching, let alone however many years they've had of riding, maybe even racing. So I like the way you kind of phrase that, and that it's a certification is really a symbol of not just your training and your education, but also your experience. And really, there are 2 big pillars of self-improvement. You know, you can obviously do courses and get training and certifications, but a big piece of it is the real world experience, like on-job training and experience out there in the real world doing the work. These are all different kind of pillars, if you like, of education. So I like the way you say that. I think the other thing I think people sometimes don't talk about is, like, in a way, like the industry, the business side of it, the ecosystem side of it, right? Like, if you have a 4-tier certification system, then an industry will then naturally have a progression in the products it can offer, and also a progression in the way it does simple things like paying staff. You know, if you have a level 3 or 4 coach versus a level 1 coach, chances are those coaches are going to teach different level programs, different ability level students, and they probably warrant a different pay scale. So it starts to go into not just sort of what do we offer the coaching industry, but also the commercial side to it. It's allowing businesses to structure programs, to even structure their permits or their leases based on the terrain the programs are running. And then even beyond that, like things like wages, salaries, workers' compensation, WCB, it all kind of goes into a whole kind of commercial system of how do we offer as an industry professional mountain bike programs, right? And the certification system is a big part of that much larger ecosystem, really. Aside from just making sure we train people to teach skills properly so people don't get hurt. I mean, that's probably the obvious one. But then there's all this other stuff to a certification system as well, which is out there, but maybe we don't talk about much.
For sure. And I think also another layer is personal professional development. You know, like when I took the level 1, like I didn't really need to do it. You know, had been, you know, coaching and guiding for quite a while. No one was asking me to do it. However, in doing it, I learned so much about what I already do, right? And it started me on this journey of like, how can I embrace my own learning process and get better at it, you know? And I felt the same as going into the level 4. Like I didn't really need to do it, but I wanted to do it to see where I was at, you know, and to see what I could bring to that table for myself, you know, as a coach, you know, and then what can I learn from that kind of the expert world. And maybe we can use that as a jumping off point to Ross. Can you talk to us about what, in your mind, an expert coach does? Like if you think about the people you've trained, the work that you've done in the snow sports and the mountain bike world, what is an expert coach all about?
I mean, I think like an expert coach is someone who can really like do the whole spectrum of lessons, whether it's beginner all the way up to like potentially World Cup level rider, like world-class talent, but still have the tools, have the confidence to be able to help anyone and do it really well. And even just kind of going back a little bit to what you were talking about earlier about the industry, like I think on this call, like I'm actually the only one I think who's technically like just an employee. I know Harlan's got his own coaching business. So I think for me, a big motivation for the levels is just proving that I'm worth getting paid more. And there's lots of people, especially in Whistler, you know, working for the bike park, where genuinely like a big motivation because they just want to get paid more because they want to be able to sustain this as a job for their life. So for me, that was definitely a big part of it. And I'm always really impressed when people show up. Maybe they have a business, and they, like you said, Christian, they don't necessarily need to get the certification to improve their paycheck, but they hold themselves to a higher standard and want to challenge themselves to actually like grow their coaching. And so yeah, really cool to have people coming on those courses for those reasons. But also I think a lot of people, maybe they might come in motivated by just trying to get a better pay rise. But I think a lot of them on it really sort of realize, okay, this is actually a really cool thing. I'm getting that extra value from upskilling and actually going on a bit of a journey of discovery within your coaching. And I think that's a big part of it as well, is like that process of learning to become an expert coach can have you unlock stuff you didn't know along the way, which can just give you so many more ways of looking at coaching, which can keep it fresh as well. If you're used to just going with your toolkit you get on like a level 2 and you don't expand from that, sometimes you can get really bored. Just like riding, if you don't expand your riding, then you can kind of get a little bit bored with riding and just go, maybe I could just do something different. But I think much like good riding, if you work on your coaching, it can just give you more avenues for enjoyment.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Christian and I are stoked to be doing this podcast. If you're enjoying the show and want to support us, please take a moment to share our podcast with your friends, families, colleagues, or neighbors by letting them know where they can find us and listen for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever they get their podcasts. The more love we get, the more episodes we can create. Alrighty, get back to the show. Yeah, well, I mean, tying into what an expert coach is, like, I've obviously coached mountain biking since the late 90s. And um, even then in North Carolina, we would be teaching kids on 2 or 4 week programs. And some of the skill level these kids got to within 4 weeks was pretty high. I mean, they were starting to ride black belts and pumping, drops, small jumps. And so even from the early days, I realized that, if we're genuinely going to build an instructor, a coach sort of education system, then we need a level of certification that's going to help train coaches to teach the stability level. And that was like early, late 90s, early 2000s. So, fast forward a few years, I was living in Whistler. We'd started PMBI. We're running the level 1, the level 2 air and level 2 tech courses. And there, living in Whistler, there's an obvious need for coaches to teach really advanced terrain. I years ago now, one of my first years here, I did a Richie Schley camp, and we were riding everything: clown shoes, A-line, merchant, all the kind of blacks, double blacks. And it was a great experience. I'll never sort of say otherwise. It was a really cool experience. But there were a couple of different coaches on that program, and it was very apparent for me as someone that was coming from a coaching background that, wow, we need a proper coaching course to train people how to actually teach skills and to guide safely in this terrain, because it just wasn't around back then. So that was the inspiration behind what we called the level 3 at the time, because I always knew we would increase the ecosystem underneath the level 3, and at one day it would become the level 4. So even when we started developing it in 2009, 2010, 2011, it was the idea that one day I knew it would be called the level 4, because the rest of the instructor certification system would kind of fill out underneath. And I basically worked for a long time, both in the snowboard industry and the summer industry. And we got to a point where I pulled together a bunch of talented, experienced people in the mountain bike industry. And we ran basically like a trial. Like I said, at the time it was called level 3, but we ran a trial course, and I got a lot of feedback, input, insight from those people. And that was a way to validate and refine the materials for the course. And at that point, I'd been working on it for about 2 or 3 years. And then after that, kind of industry forum style course, we then started running them, I think, the following year. So, and since then, it's just been, it's been quite cool in a way, in that the nuts and bolts of the course are still there. But it's a continued evolution, and every year we look at ways to just refine and polish the course so that we're training expert coaches as well as we can. And really it's born out of the need of how good riders are. So I had one comment one year, someone said, "Oh, this is a Whistler course." And yes, we do typically just offer it in Whistler, and we are going to be offering it in other countries, including New Zealand this winter, or it will obviously be New Zealand summer. But you spend some time in the UK, spend some time in Spain, go to Australia. I've been to all of these places, and go look at the kids. Look how good they are riding without any of this kind of sea to sky Whistler terrain. Like, I've seen kids in Australia with a fraction of the terrain that we have here, and they are shredding. And you've got these days, in today's mountain bike world, you've got 10, 11, 12-year-old kids that are riding black jump trails and are riding tech gnarly lines and rock rolls. And if kids are doing that, and kids are generally in long-term programs during school holidays or the summer holidays, we want to mentor and guide and keep those kids safe. We want a pathway to basically encourage parents to sign their kids up for mountain biking. And then we need a pathway and a level of coaching certification so that as kids progress, we keep them safe. And we keep them inspired because they don't just phase out because now they're way better than the coaches, and now there's no one to coach them, and then they get bored or then they get hurt. So yeah, just travel around the world, go look at the average kid with the quality of bikes we have had for the last 5+ years. The level of the sport is insane. And it's not just kids. You know, I taught a 72-year-old grandma a few years ago how to do the A-line drop. She started mountain biking when she was 68. She come from a horse riding background. So for me, this isn't a Whistler certification. This is just a reflection of the current state of the industry and the riding level of the average mountain biker. And a lot of these kids, they're not kind of crazy competitive kids. That's just how well they ride, because their bikes are better, the trails are better, and the sport's naturally evolved. So if we're getting more expert riders and we're getting more riders that want coaching, then we need something like the Level 4 to train coaches how to manage risk and how to deliver long-term coaching programs to keep people stoked and keep people safe. So that's what it's really all about. And it's every time I run the course, it pushes me. Every time I run it, I learn a lot from everyone on the course, and we just call it bike camp. And it's just bike camp to learn from each other, and really like my role or Roster's role, Jake's role when he runs the course. We're just facilitators at this point. We're facilitating the agenda, the content, the direction of the discussions. But a lot of the time, it's just very experienced people all learning from each other. And I think the biggest thing I remember when I passed my CASTI Level 4s for the snowboard instructor certification we have here in the winter, it took me nearly 10 years to get to a point where I could achieve that certification. And the biggest feeling I got after I passed, which was kind of unexpected a little bit, was like, wow, I've got so much more to learn. I've got so much more to do. And building up to it, you kind of feel like, oh, if I could ever become a Level 4, I'll be a good enough coach. I'll be a good enough rider. Like, I'll be done with training. I'll be so good, I won't have to keep getting better. Do you know what I mean? And the resounding feeling when I finally passed it was the complete opposite. It was like, wow, I'm still kind of average. I could still be so much better. And that was a really cool thing, because that, apart from anything else, it brought a whole new stoke to snowboarding for me. I think I improved more after I passed my Level 4 in the 2 years following than I probably did the couple of years leading up to finally passing it. So it's a crazy process. It's a hard process, but like anything worth doing, it kicks you up the butt, and when you finally achieve it, it's an amazing feeling. So a little bit of a background there, and a little bit of like how it serves the industry, because it can seem disconnected. It's such a high level for some people. It almost seems like we don't need that. But, my 12-year-old daughter, she outrides me on Proline here on Dead Merchant. She can ride as fast as I ride, and she's 12. That's bonkers.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, bonkers. And she's not the fastest, right? She's just she's good. She's not the best. She's not the worst. She's just one of the kids, right? And then what is cool kind of this time of year, Crankworks, there's all these kids coming in from different countries. They don't ride here all the time. And then you see them come here for 1 week a year, and they are ripping. And, a lot of them haven't even ever been to before, but that's the level of riding that we're seeing in the industry. And it's, apart from anything else, it's sick. It's so cool right now. Mountain biking is so hot right now.
And that speaks volumes to where we're at. Think about a 12-year-old riding at speed on Dirt Merchant, and you went back 10, 15 years, there's maybe a handful that could do it.
Yeah, they all do it. It's bonkers.
Yeah.
Totally. I remember following John Lee's kids, Anthony Shelley, who's now racing World Cups and stuff, but I've followed him down Dirt Merchant when he was 9. And at the time, he was pretty short for 9, so it was almost like following a 7-year-old. He didn't even look right. You were like, that's not so cool.
I've dropped in on Half Nelson with him and Ross and some other kids, thinking we were going on a kids ride. It'd be kind of chill. And, he threw a no-hander on the first jump. I'm like, oh, okay, we're going to ride and have fun. Yeah. Hey, Harlan.
Yeah.
Could you describe your journey into the level 4 for us? I think that kind of illustrates some good stuff.
Yeah, sure. It was definitely a long and fraught journey. And I think that for me, not being I've been teaching since 2011, and in many ways the mountain bike instruction culture has grown with me. It was pretty non-existent when I started, and then there's scattered hit bits here and there, but since 2011 it's just exploded. So most of my instruction had been with that beginner to intermediate rider over the years. And though I have a racing development team for juniors, sort of to the point of Paul's point about evolution, there was still the level 1, level 2, and then getting into level 3 was pretty much satisfying a lot of my needs for coaching. I always personally just want to keep striving for something else, professional development, whether I teach that many or had taught that many like expert level riders at the time. I just was always curious about what's the next layer. And I do view all these certifications as layers. And you can't really you can't stand on the level 3 or 4 without having a real solid level 1, 2, and 3 base, right? So I think 2019 maybe I went out and tried to do it was level 3 at that point, I believe still. Well, I know it was still level 3 at the point. And I was there to soak up as much as possible. I didn't expect to pass. And I definitely felt to a certain disadvantage coming from the environment that I taught in. And but showing up, I learned a whole ton. And though I didn't pass, and this is what I tell people who come into our courses, is that this is an educational opportunity. Like no matter how you do, you'll learn something. And I took that home every time I took the level 3/4. So we'll just call it level 4 from now on. But yeah, so I didn't pass, but I went home, had a lot to ponder, immediately able to start bringing some of that information and start working with it in my coaching experience. Get to a point where like, oh yeah, I think I kind of got this. A couple years later, let's go take the level 4 again. And I always found it interesting that I could be in the course, and while I'm teaching, doing a practice teach to your peers, know in my head, like this isn't the standard, right? Like you just kind of know.
That's a good feeling, isn't it?
To know it's not the standard. Yeah.
I've been there myself, and especially when it's an hour long and you're like 20 minutes in and you're like, I've got 40 minutes left.
Yeah. Which to me means like, oh, like it actually, I know what the target is. I mean, I have a better sense of what the target is. It's not, and that was what I think it was my 4th try when I did pass my level 4. But I think I caught Ross off guard because he was my mentor for that course. But a couple of times, like, how did I do? And in my heart, I was like, I think I did pretty well there. I thought that was about right. And Ross wasn't quite ready to tell me yay or nay at the point, but that's all right. And then also in that journey, I think maybe because I took it so many times, it really helped me have a lot of clarity on that last time. I could see where other people were just missing the mark.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Paul and I get a lot out of this project, and we hope you do too. If you'd like to help us grow this show, check out our Patreon. By becoming a supporter, you can help us cover the cost of the show, as well as help us make this an exceptional show with great topics and insightful guests. You can find a link on our website, the mountainbikecoachingpodcast.buzzsprout.com. Thanks, and let's get back to the show.
I think that's really cool because to me, what you're talking about and you're speaking to is coach education versus certification.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go into the mindset that the level 4 is primarily coach education with a certification piece to it and assessment, because that's really all a certification piece is we're assessing you to a certain standard and it's kind of like a yes or no, right?
Right.
But ultimately, the true value of the level 4 or any course, level 1, level 2, is the coach education. And that education takes time. And we talked at the top of the podcast, like you need to come in with a certain amount of prerequisite skills, experience, so that you can show what you need to show in a 3-day course or a 4-day course or a 5-day course. That's not a long time to really develop a bunch of skills. If you come in without the kind of required skills or experience, you can definitely improve on the course, and that's definitely our goal. But it's still a limited window, right? So, and that becomes more or as you go up levels. So by the time you get to level 4, it's a 5-day course. But if someone's coming into it with 15 years of experience versus someone's coming into it with 7 years of experience, you can't just suddenly accelerate the 7 years of experience, or 7 plus 8 is 15, 8 years of experience in 5 days, right? And that's where it's like, we always say to people, it's as soon as you start going to the higher levels, the level 2, 3, 4, like focus on being an education piece, and the intrinsic value is what you're learning. And if you happen to get it first go, bonus, awesome, that's amazing. That shows the level of depth and skill you had before you turned up. But if it takes you 2 or 3 times, that's fine, because it's coach education with a little piece of certification on the end. And it's almost sort of rewiring or reframing what these courses are. Primarily, it's the education piece, and then obviously there's the certification piece too. But the challenge is people flip that. They see it as a certification course first. I'm here to pass the test. And that's not the most beneficial mindset to come into these things, even for the level 1 course. It's the education piece first, certification piece second. Does that sort of resonate with you, Harlan, based on what you were saying?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's kind of like always a beginner mindset. Like I'm always showing up to learn more. And the assessment part of it is to kind of to see if I did learn last time or if I keep learning along the way. So yeah, very much so. It's
Harlan, I'm curious, in your local area, how many other like pretty high-end coaches do you chat with regularly? Because I feel like that's one thing we're blessed with in Sea to Sky, is that we've got an abundance of really amazing experienced coaches, and we have a beer with them or just have, like, and I attribute that a lot of my learning has happened through just chats with friends, whether it could be Paul or good friend John Shelley in snowboarding. And I think these things go a long way to just adding those layers that you're talking about outside of course time. So really, if anyone is considering on doing a course like this, I think these are some things you can do to really help your chance of success, is really cultivate that coaching brain through just chats over beers, chats over coffee, whatever. I'm just curious, like, how much of that you might have had.
It's been pretty minimal, and that's I was always jealous of y'all up there, because you had such a peer group that at hand. I think fortunately I've been able to develop a couple coaches in my vicinity that are level 2s, but like super curious, super engaged in the material, super open to feedback, discussing. Every now and then I've seen a level 2 who's just like, I got my certificate, but they're very like closed, and they're not willing to keep exploring. And it's too bad for them.
We even see that on the level 1, the amount of coaches that get their level 1 and think, yay, I'm quote unquote certified. Mm-hmm. I'm done. I'm good to go.
Yeah.
For me, it's always been like, no, that's the start of your journey. It's not the end of your journey.
Yeah. And I think that there's a place for that person. In the same way that there's a place, because there's tiers to this education system, that there's a place for the person who's truly passionate and wants to go far. And to that point, like, I kind of want to say that, like, my feeling about what the level 4 is, the expert coach is the person who is so well-rounded and experienced in so many ways to not just like pull a tool out of the toolbox, but creatively use the tool with every different individual we come across over time. And so I see, like, online, people who do on, like, YouTubers, and they're like, hey, let's do this or that. And sometimes you think, like, okay, well, what happens when you deal with a rider who's riding in the Cat 1 or the pro class? And what do you do then? What do you do with your 12-year-old daughter who's sending it? Like, what is that layer that they need? And I think that's what,
especially when they don't really have any, like, really visible red flags or flaws in their riding. A lot of those online tutorials with no feedback are based around just fixing problems that are quite obvious, not necessarily things like, you're doing really well, but how can we build off of that and make you even better?
Yeah.
I would say that's, in a way, that's like the expert coaching in a nutshell. Half the time, yeah, they're not doing anything wrong, but we can get better. Like, all of us can get way better. And if we can get better, then a lot of these riders that we're working with, these students, can get better. And that's often one of the challenges for coaches coming into the level 3 and level 4, is they're so stuck in the way of, like, trying to see something that the rider is doing, quote unquote, kind of wrong, because they want to fix it. And then they basically hit a roadblock because the rider isn't doing anything wrong. They can shred. They're an expert rider. So as an expert coach, how can we make them even better, even smoother, even more efficient, even more stylish, even more confident, even faster, right? And that's where the expert coach kind of kicks in, really. Cool. I mean, one thing to pick up what you said, Harlan, there too, which I really liked, was a little bit of a myth in that, like, an expert coach only teaches expert riders. Some of the best level 1 lessons I've seen in the winter with, like, beginner snowboarders, never strapped on a snowboard before, is from level 4s. It's not from the level 1 instructor that teaches beginners every single day. It's the level 4 that's been teaching snowboarding for 15 years, and it's their second beginner lesson that season. But the experience, the versatility they have in their coaching, their ability to adapt, react, connect with the student, all of these things are just magnified, and they end up being the best beginner coach because they are an expert coach. And the reality is too, if you look at the pool of students in a sport, most of the students are still going to be beginner to intermediate. Then a handful, a bunch of them might be like intermediate to advanced. And then a small pool of the students, a small percentage, will be that really higher level expert long-term kind of coaching program students. So even as an expert coach, it's not like you're going to just, right, I'm a level 4, I'm going to teach expert riders exclusively from now on. That ain't going to happen, probably. I taught a beginner lesson just 2 weeks ago. So it's, I think that's something nice to link to, is that, in a way, how can a level 4 or why does a level 4 teach these beginner to novice lessons more effectively? I don't know if you want to touch on that one, Christian, or dig into that a bit more.
For sure. I think when you look at like, as you said, the pool of who we're working with, the numbers get smaller as you get further into the skill level, right? And so there's just there are fewer experts to teach, for sure. But I really like what you guys are commenting on here with that, the intermediate rider, where there's nothing obvious standing out. And it takes, it takes a lot of experience to diagnose what is actually going on and what's going to get them to the next level. And there's a lot of patience in writing, and all of the kind of the more subtle skills that we get at in the level 4 and some of our other trainings, where we're dealing with a bit of the mental skills, a bit of our people skills, and how we're connecting and discovering like what are the roadblocks they might be having within their writing. And it really takes that, we tease that stuff out in level 4 to highlight how the expert coach can get at those things in an organized manner.
Yeah.
And so I thought this might be a good kind of jumping off point.
Yeah, I want to say, like, I always say to people as well, like
the process of learning to teach.
I've got so much experience of just generally teaching. You can throw me anyone to teach,
and
other than
specifically maybe kind of highlighting on the
famous person,
the coaching strategy side of things.
Starstruck by in terms of writing, not a celeb. Yeah, say Sam Hill. Not that he'd need it, and I've modeled my writing as closely to his as possible. But the most nervous I ever get, and this is probably what people will experience on course, is if I'm presenting in front of my peers. So if Paul asks me to deliver a session, or if any of the two of you are at like a mentor training or whatever, that is hands down when I'm most on edge, because you guys know a lot.
So me.
So for sure, learning to run or shadowing the level 4 course is definitely like quite mentally draining. Partly as well because I don't consider myself to be very good at learning by reading. I'm more of a learn by give it a go, and hopefully it works out pretty good, and then readjust from there. So Paul might give me a little bit of a sort of here's the outline of how the course should be run, but that's just me, and I have to see it being done, and I have to kind of just get in there and give it a go, and
which luckily you're pretty good at.
Yeah, thankfully, yeah. I feel like probably one of my strengths is I trust my teaching skills enough that I can adapt and problem solve on the fly well. For me, probably my biggest work on is the structure that you kind of need to have on the course to kind of guide people through that process. But luckily enough, when you're on a chairlift, you've got time to just consult your phone and go, okay, am I on track? So for sure, I'll do that. But it's good because I'm a big believer that you only progress when you are challenged. So I think it's helped me become better. And even now, one thing I try and do is I try and connect with people in the course in a way that means like I can show them that I'm actually fallible as well. It's not like I'm here to say I know everything, listen to me, do what I do. So one thing I actually try and do on courses is the very first theme presentation, I ask candidates to select a random theme, and I have one chairlift ride to figure out in my head. I don't come with a plan. I don't know if I've admitted this before, Paul.
No, yeah. I kind of do this.
I don't come with a lesson plan for the course. I just live it, and I kind of go, okay, like you pick, because sometimes people think one theme is easier than the other, but I want to show them that I can just do something completely off the cuff and trust my coaching skills to come through.
Yeah, because you're trusting the process too.
Yeah.
You're trusting, in a way, the system.
Yeah.
You trust if I apply this template and this skill-based teaching and a bit of skill blending and all the things you now do autonomously without thinking about it.
Yeah.
You'll be able to deliver a pretty good thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I tell people on the course this as well. And I'm honest, if I do the session, like the hour-long presentation, and I feel it didn't hit the way I wanted it to, I'll be honest. I'll say, hey, I tried it. These are things that I think if I I'll engage with the group and see, hey, what do you all think I could have done better to engage with you or challenge you more? And that is all part of the learning process for everyone. it's not about me trying to deliver like a perfect example session. It's about a learning process.
I think it might be good for the listeners to understand that when we come to the level 4, we're expected to teach a legitimate lesson to our peers. So like unlike level 1, 2, and 1 and 2, especially where we're kind of presenting example lessons. Hey, here's kind of a standard lesson. Here's how we might tweak it. For this type of individual, we show up to level 4s, and the goal is that we're actually at the end of an example lesson, we've all learned something. We've all been like, oh, cool. That was good. Right. And they were challenged. Our peers are, yeah,
totally. And it's been really cool seeing Duncan initially, and then Ross and Jake learning, like from my perspective, seeing them go through that process of teaching the course, because simply put,
they were
multiple
challenged.
years. Like
it's
not a course you can just grab a book and go teach. Good. Like how long? Like 3 years, maybe.
Yeah, I think. I think I had like one year of shadowing a few of the prep course and then that course, and then I think the following year I was there as like a assistant, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. Before
I was given the keys. From there.
Totally. Yeah. And for me, it's the same. Like when I started delivering the course, I have the added bonus that I put a lot of the course content together, so that always makes it easier for me. But it was 2 or 3 years where it started to really feel solid, and I started to relax and be comfortable with it. But it's like all the courses we do at GSMBC. I mean, every mentor has an outline that we have to follow, and that keeps our courses really consistent. But we also have to find that balance between delivering a consistent structure, but then adapting it to the environment, the coaches on the course, the weather, the trails, whatever it is. And I think that's something that Ross has always been really good at, is connecting with the people on the course, and then sticking to the structure and ticking the boxes, delivering the key points, but he's doing it in a way that works for him. And to me, that's expert coaching. None of us are cookie cutters. Like, we're not trying to create robots that just all teach the same way. What we're trying to be focused on is like, and this is how I try and train these guys to run the course, is outcome based. If you're ticking these 3 boxes by lunchtime, great. How you do that, there's some options here. Choose one that fits the best, right? And then that, like I said, that kind of provides hopefully the balance between the consistency and the structure, but then that adaptability, so that people can connect with the material and the coaches can essentially find genuine progression and value. And I think that's where the coach education piece kicks in. If they're feeling every day they are being educated, that's where they'll feel the value. But it's a super fun one to run, because it, like Ross said, every time I do it just definitely pushes us, for sure. I said to Shannon the other day, like, it's the hardest thing I do every year. Okay, so we just wanted to take a quick break to say thanks for listening. And if you're a rider or coach out there and you have an idea for a topic or future episode, feel free to let us know through the comments on our Instagram page @Donuts and Bikes. We're always happy to hear suggestions from our listeners on what we can do or ways to make the podcast better. Thanks, team. Let's get back to the show.
But the thing is as well, because it tends to happen maybe once a year, maybe with a prep course as well, because there's not that repetition. You got to be on it like from that first course. But luckily, it happens usually at the end of every hemisphere season. So it's not like we're not like warmed up to coaching. I definitely find that sometimes when I go from that transition from snowboard work to bike work, my first course back to biking, there's a little bit of a phase of me sort of like reminding myself, okay, we're on bikes now. Because usually maybe day before I've been on my snowboard. So, but it's the same kind of stuff though, thankfully. It's that whether you're coaching someone I don't know, I can't juggle, I think Paul can, coaching, whether you're doing it in one sport to the other, it's essentially the same. It requires very, very similar skill sets. So, but it's the medium of doing so can be a little bit shocking.
You can't juggle?
No.
No.
Juggle.
Ross, I remember I was pretty green course conductor. We were doing a course together in Oregon, multiple cell course, and
Was that the one in Bend?
Bend, yeah, all three of us were there.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was a fun time. Yeah, really fun time. But I remember still writing out my notes and planning out, and you're just kind of chilling. You're just like, I just wing it. I just,
Yeah.
And it speaks to this idea of an expert coach is if you know the structures and to come back on to something you mentioned a few minutes ago, if you truly try to connect with your people and you have the skills to pay the bills, you don't really need the blueprint. Like you can make it happen. And I think that really differentiates that expert coach from the others.
Yeah. Well, I would rephrase that and say you need the blueprint, but the blueprint is subconscious at that point.
Sure.
You have the blueprint, you just don't need to think about the blueprint. It's in there, right?
I think as well, I'm generally in this context, I'm not afraid to get something wrong in inverted commas, because I think that's a huge part of connecting with people is having that way of showing that you are fallible, you're always learning. And I think one of the biggest inhibitors to learning is being afraid of getting something wrong. And in the teaching context, our role as coaches is to actually allow people to do that in as safe a way as possible.
Yeah.
Sure. Learn from those safe mistakes. So,
Totally.
and that includes teaching, right? Like when you're on a course, you're not dealing with a paying customer. So why not try something, learn from it, and get feedback on it.
For sure.
Well, and that's interesting because it's you're opening the door for them to make mistakes as well. So it's that humility piece, I think, and I think that's where the connection piece happens too. So many coaches, they want to explore, what is expert coaching? I've got a program in my community. I want to start like Harlan did. I want to start a little race development team, or I want to start a 10-week program over the summer to master jumping, or whatever the program is they want to build in that community. And so they come to a level 3 or a level 4 course, and invariably they often come with a lot of perceived pressure, like, oh my God, everyone's going to be really good, or they're going to be really strict, and I think showing that fallibility, it takes the pressure out, the pressure cooker away, and it just says, hey, we're just all here to learn, and we're all human, and let's just be comfortable with learning. And the best way to do that, as Ross said, is through making mistakes. Although you do make very few mistakes, I will just add that. It's not like he's a complete hack and messes it up,
Yeah.
and everyone's like, "Who's this guy?"
Yeah.
He's actually pretty good. It's pretty good.
Hey, for Harlan here, I want to follow up on something Ross said. Ross mentioned themes, and maybe for some of our listeners, this might be an odd word in terms of coaching. But Harlan, what I'm curious about is in your learning about how we use themes as coaches, how have you taken that back to your day-to-day worlds? Maybe talk about what theme-based teaching is, and then how you use it in your coaching.
I think in some ways moving towards a theme, and if people are not sure what a theme means, it's and actually it's funny that we save this for level 4, because what's one of the most common things that people say is oh, I want some more confidence, right? Or I want more, I want to be faster. I need more speed, or be efficient. And those are all just standard themes. So we hear those things from a beginner to intermediate rider. Lots of intermediate riders want those. But in some ways, having the theme helps me have a more relaxed lesson for a lot of people, because instead of being like, all right, well, we're going to go and we're going to get more efficient at cornering, or we're going to corner and we'll see if we can make it more efficient. It can start to feel very like you're hammering the same nail over and over. And if I can like change the atmosphere a little bit and explore, we'll play in corners with the concept of efficiency. Let's go do some climbing with efficiency. And what we start to understand, I think, is actually we get to that fundamental skill of maybe body position throughout our riding. And to me, when we can like get people to feel something like efficiency in a variety of environments, then it connects with them in a different way than if we just try to hammer that same corner over and over and see how efficient we can do it, because it sort of obscures the feeling we're looking for. I don't know if that really describes that well, but so just in general, like sometimes people are very like, hey, I want to go do this drop. Great. Some people are like, I want more confidence. All right, we're going to go do that drop. Or we're going to go learn to do that drop, not so much for the sake of doing the drop, but like learning to be, how do we build confidence when we're faced with challenges?
Yeah, for sure. I love what that, Harlan, like, and that's what pro teams will often do out of season camps, specifically based on that. I remember I once like helped coach at the US Border Cross off-season bike. They were doing biking and they were using downhill mountain biking to help get all the athletes out of their comfort zone, with the specific goal to help grow that part of their skill set for racing when they're faced with a challenging start section or jumps on a course. So like, I totally get what you're talking about there. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think the thing with themes too is it, like you said, Alan, it opens the door for multiple skills or multiple terrain features or even disciplines to come in, but it still gives the session, in a way, a singular focus. And that's where it gives the expert coach, which is the double-edged sword. It gives them more freedom and more choices, which is what you need to develop expert riders, because the degree of variation of what they can or can't do, or what they want to do, or what they can refine and polish, the degree of variation is massive. So an expert coach, the more options you have, the more flexibility you have to develop their riding, that is the better. That's what you need. And that's essentially what theme-based coaching does, is it allows a coach to adjust the dials whilst keeping a singular focus. And but that, like I said, that's a double-edged sword. That's hard to control. You know, if you're in a DJ booth and you've got 200 dials on it and you don't know what all those dials do, chances are it's gonna be a bad party. It's not gonna sound good.
Yeah.
But if you're like a brand new DJ and all you've got to worry about is volume, trace, treble, and bass, chances are you can't really screw it up too much, and it will still be a good party, right? And I think that's what expert coaching is you just getting more and more dials. But as you do that, you've got to learn what those dials are and how to control them. And theme-based coaching helps you do that.
I think it's the adaptability, but focused. And so being able to stay focused while constantly adaptable is the challenge. And that's those years of experience and training gives you that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think theme-based coaching as well connects with the long-term aspect of what we do. You know, if we think about earlier podcasts, we talked about coaching versus instructing, and you know, one of the distinguishing features is, you know, coaching is typically long-term. And if we pick a theme like confidence, we're not going to increase 100% of confidence within an hour. we might get at 5%. And it's going to, so if we get at this theme where we've got all these dials over time, we're going to start adjusting others, and learning the structure of how to do that, I think, can be very, very eye-opening for both the coach and the rider. So Harlan, I'm interested in your racing team. You had a race this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And are there themes or approaches that from the level 4 that you've incorporated into your team?
Yeah, well, so I actually do a month, like a weekly skills training plan, and so we use Training Peaks, and we have basically drills and tasks in there, and those are assigned kind of based on a couple of different things, like what part of the season we're in. So, in early season, we might be working on efficiency, and then somewhere in the season we build into speed, right? And like as a theme, we might have a particularly challenging course come up, and we'll just use this theme of precision because it's a super techie course. Carrying speed is challenging, so putting your wheels in the right place, the right time, with the right pressure, and knowing when and how much to do it, right, is like is the challenge. So, and I think the theme base also just allows me to even more so look at the development of my riders as a years long process, not like you said, an hour or or 1 weekend camp. But you can keep extending out what you see for them. And I think for me, there's a component of risk management that comes out in that. It makes me more patient as an instructor and helps me teach patience with my riders when we can see the long term. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, I think it's a great example for sure.
I love that. That sounds right, man. I think that's one of the defining distinctions with the level 4s. We're basically taking experienced instructors per se, like that teach half-day lessons, full-day lessons, maybe a weekend camp, and then we're training them how to teach 9, 10, 12 week, how to transition to then coaching those long-term programs. What you highlighted there, Harlan, kind of that hits the nail on the head, and it made me think too, like, is there a theme that you like? What's your favorite theme to coach?
Oh, good question. I think like
or it depends.
Yeah, I mean, like precision and efficiency are kind of two of the ones that really come along, but it does depend. But those are pretty fun. I feel like that's an area I've explored a lot. Confidence is an interesting one because it's one I like because it's so rewarding, and I feel like you sort of you do like a magic trick with one hand while you get them confident in the other. Like it's like you sort of trick them into confidence through some of my experience. But precision, efficiency, speed are just sort of some ones, and I feel like I'm still new to really exploring all the themes that I can. And yeah, coming out of the course, all the times that I did, it was like just trying to get it, trying to explore it, and like you said, I feel like there's still so much for me to learn, and so much more for me to play with.
Well, what's your go-to favorite thing?
I think quite often I find that when I'm coaching, generally I don't necessarily define the theme so much, and I find that they do all like the skills, they do all interconnect. But I am a big fan of creativity or style, and it's not, and because that's my strength as a writer. Because all you guys know, I can't whip well. But it's more like the style, the creativity of where you place your bike on the trail, you know, using the whole width of a track, or hey, am I going to be a bit more poppy and try and gap stuff like Jackson Goldstone, or am I going to be a bit more like, I don't know, like Brooke McDonald and be strong and just smash through stuff? Of course, he doesn't just do that, but if we're going to pick two riders that maybe ride a little bit differently, that's probably a pretty good way of looking at it. But yeah, I like having challenging riders to have explore different styles of riding, because that will build their adaptability. And in doing so, they will actually have to have precision. Because if you're not precise and you try and ride the way Jackson rides, you're going to get flat really a lot, or you're going to break stuff on your bike or your body. So, like I said, I think they all do interconnect, but it just depends on what you really want to shine a light on at any given time in terms of your own coaching brain. But yeah, I suppose that's what I like.
No, I like that. That's probably one of my speed and confidence for sure. I like those, and I love teaching creativity and style, because I would say like the missing piece for a lot of riders, beyond the confidence that separates an advanced rider from an expert rider is often it's almost like a mental approach to their riding, like opening up their mind to what they can actually do with the current skills they have. So a lot of advanced riders are really good riders, and what's separating them from sort of bumping up to the next stage is they're just not playing around enough. They're not being creative enough. So I love teaching that thing because it makes them realize, it makes them realize they're a lot more capable than they thought they were. And actually, they're a lot more stylish than they thought they were. They just need to sort of see it in action, know what's on the menu, and then they can start sort of doing those things as well. I love teaching that one. It's a good time.
For sure. Yeah, I try to unlock that on single speed all the time. Style.
As long as you got a dropper post, you're good.
Yeah, right. No, it's been a fun challenge for sure. Yeah. Hey, let's maybe got one more question here before we wrap things up. Riding standards. We haven't talked about the riding standards for the level 4. And so maybe from both of your perspectives, maybe Harlan, start with you as a non-local Whistler rider, and Ross can chime in as well. What's your perception of the riding standards for the course?
You have to me, you would need to be a rider who is comfortable in all variety of terrain. Maybe not all, but pretty close to all of it. Maybe not D1. So techie, A-line, maybe some dirt merchant. Things you as a rider, like the general impression I would want to see is that you have flow, and the flow being like just in your body movements. There's a lack of rigidity. There's like lots of adaptability. When things go wrong, it almost looks natural. Like you did it, you're like, oh, I meant to do that. So just a lot of adaptability, flow, and comfort in almost all terrain.
I like the word flow, and those two words, flow and adaptability. If they're qualities that you can show in most terrain, chances are, I remember when Jamie Hill was on the course a few years ago. She came in. She's got a gymnastics background and racing background, and she's an incredible athlete. And so she came into the course with some, heaps of that experience pillar that we talked about earlier, and just killed it. And riding wise, and then coaching wise, she passed first go. So it's. Yeah, but I think of that when I think of her riding. Like nothing ever looks too difficult. There's always flow in her movements, and she was very adaptable to whatever terrain we happen to ride. And it's not like we're riding double blacks all the time. Like I think that's an important point to make. We spend plenty of time on greens and blues on the course as well. Apart from anything else, I'm just too tired. My arms aren't big enough anyway. So.
Yeah, I find as well, like anytime anyone asks, I think At this level of riding, I think that's when individual styles come out. And just relative to where you are in the skill development model, we're in that autonomous moving into mastery phase. So riders can actually make a decision of how they want their riding to look. And so I might, so in every, even if we're all in morph suits, I could be like, oh, that's Harlan, that's Paul, that's Christian, or whoever's on the course. And potentially there's those distinctive style characteristics that still have performance. That's the other thing, like some styles might not come along with performance benefit, in which case there's potentially that's a negative. But if the rider is exuding flow, adaptability, all those kind of things, but is distinctly themselves, that's a great sign. Riders who tend to be more in that consistent realm, or maybe we want to call it level 2 level of riding, merging into level 3, they're an example of rider who will look very stable, very consistent. They haven't yet established their own style yet, or they're not able to copy a style. They might not have they might want to ride like their favorite rider, but they haven't been able to implement some of those characteristics within their own riding yet.
That adaptability is not there.
Yeah,
I like the way you say that, and it's that reminds me of it goes back to being outcome based. Like if you look at these themes, we're looking for a certain level of confidence and adaptability. We're looking for speed and precision, creativity and style. And if you've got all the skills there, your stability and balance, your braking, your terrain awareness, your pressure control, your bike leaning, whatever, you've got all those technical skills there. The outcome will be we'll see these themes, and the outcomes allow for that individual style. Like all 4 of us ride very, I remember when Katie Holden did a course a while ago and a few years back, she was technically the strongest on the course. She was so smooth. And then the other guy on the course, they both were kind of a similar level, similar speed, but they both look completely different because one of them is like 80 pounds heavier than the other one. But they're both ticking the same boxes. They've got the same brake control. They've got the same confidence. They've got the same flow, but they look very different. So I think being outcome-based is a big part of what an expert coaching course should be, and what expert riding is. Like, go watch a World Cup, right? Or an enduro race, and they're all going really fast. They all have speed. They all have flow. They all have style, they all have confidence, but each person looks a little bit different. So I guess the good news is that there's freedom of expression, and we're not looking for cookie cutters, because that's not expert riding, that's not expert, and that's not humans. That's not a human-centric approach apart from anything else. Like every human is different, and they learn and ride and process things uniquely, right?
I think it ties back as well to the level of riding nowadays. I think as an expert level coach, really, if you're not able to ride down the same trails as groups you're with, then you're basically creating a little bit of a hindrance to the session. So it's not only about just having the riding skills just for us to assess in that from a riding regard. It's also just from having the bandwidth within your own riding to be able to ride trails that are difficult when necessary. But also as well, I think it's really important that every rider who meets the standard for in the expert coaching course should be able to do all the moves so that they know what it feels like and they know the utility of these moves. It doesn't necessarily mean doing them at World Cup pace or at features that are like hardline size and stuff like that. But having that awareness, that physical connection to your body and your bike is crucial to have a deeper level of understanding as to how it can help, and therefore convey it in a more simple, effective way to when you're coaching people. You're not necessarily just teaching from something you've heard or observed. You've actually felt it.
Right, which opens the door to risk management in the guided context too. Because if you know what's required, you're able to observe what you need to see in your rider, but you also know firsthand the consequences, of errors, and so that elevates the coach's risk management strategies, their guiding protocols in that expert
That's
journey.
a really cool point, actually. I might just pull that up quickly because, like, fade to black here is a good example. There's three drops on it. The first one's a big-ish kind of mini road gap thing. The second drop's kind of small, and then the third drop is like an on-off. And an expert coach the second drop is the first drop that you actually do with your riders. The third drop is the second drop you do with your riders. And then the first drop is the last drop you do with your riders. And you only would really know that if you can ride that trail and feel that trail, because each of those drops is a different shape and size, and it has a different speed. And that experience, that knowledge has an expert. I'm saying expert too many times, but that knowledge as an expert rider will immediately impact your decision making and your lesson plan as an expert coach. Because, classic thing I see is riders come down that trail. The first drop is the biggest, hardest drop there is, but it's the first drop. So that's the one they all try first. And really your qualifier should be the second and third drops. And if you can do those, then you go back up, or you walk back up the side trail, and then you do the first drop. So yeah, it's not that we need expert coaches to be incredible riders just to demonstrate skills. A huge part of it is understanding a full coaching program and a full risk management plan, and when and how much to introduce certain skills at certain times. But maybe Ross, you could it does go beyond that, because there's often a ceiling that I always say I'm a professional coach, but I'm an amateur rider. There's a ceiling that you and I reach, but we've coached people better than us and faster than us. I mean, I've coached you guys, because most of you guys are all better than me. Talk to that a little bit. Like, what are the expectations, or what's the purpose of being able to coach someone better than you?
Well, I think the thing there is to like, a lot of it can feel quite intimidating when you're faced with a rider who's objectively better than you, and you think, well, what can I be of any use? But at that level, we're essentially tools for being able to collect information for that rider, and we can be a bit more collaborative with them. Especially if they're because they're a better rider or a high level rider, they may have a pretty good understanding of what they're doing and what they're feeling. So really, we're a way of collecting information for them, whether it's through just our eyes and therefore how we convey that message, or through things like video and stuff like that. But without that connection with our own riding, but like at maybe lower speed, smaller features, it's a bit harder for us to potentially understand what that athlete or that rider might be feeling. And then we just rely on just telling them what we saw, which might not be that helpful.
Well, and you're relying, I think the coach's role there is what you're speaking to is like, we're the technical reference model. You get these pro riders they can outride us faster and stronger and fitter and all that kind of younger. That's my excuse. I'm too old. They can outride us, but it's not necessarily because they know more about technique or they know more about riding. It's just because they're better at doing it. Just because you can ride really fast doesn't mean you know how you're doing it. Like the amount of pro riders I've coached, and I've told them something I might tell an intermediate rider, something about their knee position through a turn, something about when they load the bike in a turn, when they pump. It's not often particularly complex skills that I'm teaching them, but they weren't aware of it, or they weren't aware of how much they were doing it, or they weren't aware of when they were doing it. So my job as the coach is we're the analytical tool, essentially. We're going to provide the analysis that they probably don't have, and then we're going to provide the
or I feel like as athletes, sometimes an athlete's trajectory might be just grow, and then they get to a point where they almost come with a little bit of a plateau within their rise to the top potentially. But then their competition might keep growing, and they think, well, I'm all of a sudden not getting the results I thought I would. So that might have them dip in their confidence, things like that. And so then part of our role as a coach might be thinking, well, how can we like have this rider learn to be able to adapt, to then retool to be able to then have another growth spurt of progression?
Yeah. It's like, for me, it's like a personal trainer. Like you need a personal trainer to make the athlete stronger and to provide the structure and to provide the training and to highlight the weaknesses. And we're exactly the same, but just more from a technical perspective, technical skills perspective. And, I did think this one the other day because I was doing a race at Silver Star. I'm not the best at racing, but I do love it. And one of the takeaways I took over the weekend was I missed track walk because I was dealing with some family stuff. And so on practice day, I spent more time just standing on the side of the track watching others come through, which I don't often do at races because I like riding my bike too much. And I've learned actually I need to do that more. If I'm actually going to race, I need to just stand and watch fast people come through sections.
Scary.
And that was the most eye-opening thing I've had for a while, because it's like, I know all there is to know about mountain biking, but until you see someone apply the same skills that you know at 10% more speed, and then suddenly things change, where they unweight, their line choice, it's all changed just because they're going faster. And so in terms of like coaching these pro riders, there is a limitation to that technical model in terms of like, how much can I analyze their riding and find areas to improve? At some point, the coach can self-educate and the coach can go out there and look at their competitors. And that's why we have line spotters on World Cups, because that's literally what they're doing. They're watching the other riders and then they're taking that information, as Ross said, they're taking that information back and saying, hey, Amory's doing this, or Tani's doing that, or Valley's doing this. Here's something for you to try. And without that information, the rider might not have had an opportunity there to improve what they're doing or change what they're doing, right? So that's where the collaboration piece comes in, I think. And but yeah, I think going back to it, like an expert coach needs to be a good rider for sure. We need to be comfortable in most terrain, partly so that we keep ourselves safe, partly so we can just feel the things we're going to teach. But that doesn't mean we need to be a pro rider and silly good. And we do have a number of level 4s in the industry now, which is really cool. I mean, that speaks to the fact that it is a high level certification, but it's not so high that with the right time and experience, most people can achieve it. And that's what we want to try and, I don't know, from your experience, maybe Christian or Harlan, like in terms of that riding standard, do you feel like we're achieving that balance where it's achievable, it's accessible, but it's high? Like, were there times, I mean, maybe speak to that a little bit. Christian, what's your thoughts on
that? I think it's an important standard to have published, so if people know what to expect. And it takes years to get to that riding level, especially if you don't live in Whistler and you take the level 4 in Whistler. Like you need to have put in a lot of miles, a lot of trail miles in a lot of different kind of situations, so that you have the confidence and adaptability to then apply to a variety of terrain. And so everything we've been saying about this, I think, is spot on. And I get the question a lot, when training folks we talk about the level 4, like, well, why do you have to be an expert rider to coach experts? Can't you just be like the soccer coach on the side and tell them what to do? And so I think you really need to have that ingrained deep within you to be able to be an effective coach.
I think it speaks to the credibility too, right? Like if you're on a long-term program and people are trusting you to develop their kids or to develop themselves, there's a lot of credibility that comes from like, well, let's go out and ride and let's ride together and let me see you on the trail or let me see in this progression. If we're able to do that it goes back to that connection piece, right? Like trust is huge.
Yeah, I mean, if you're working one-on-one with an expert rider and they're they lack some confidence about a feature, and you just can say, let me show you. And you can demo it in, like as Harlan said, with flow and confidence. Like that goes a long way to doing your job as a coach for you. Like if you can just demo the right speed, the right line, the right attitude, and they see that it's not that, not that big a deal, they can see themselves doing it.
Yeah.
Well.
Or even like, I would say like, say there's like a steep techie rock roll into a rough shoot or something out of the rock roll. Like you may not be at a point where you want to ride that, but the student knows you've ridden similar stuff to that and you ride stuff like that all the time. And the student might be like, yeah, this is probably a notch above my coach's pay grade for them to ride. But I know my coach understands what it's like to drop into something like this, or to ride out of something like this, or to even just kind of go through the process of building up to something like this. So I think that's where, like, yeah, there is I guess a minimum ask from a lot of expert riders when it comes to like, I want to trust my coach. And a big part of that is knowing, well, has my coach been here before? Could my coach do this? Or have they done something like this, right? Because if they haven't, like, well, why would I trust their advice on breaking points or pressure or grit when they've never ridden anything like this before? Like that wouldn't make sense, right? Whereas if you're on the soccer field, I mean, does it really matter? Run a bit faster, kick the ball, here's some drills. Like, I've seen a lot of soccer coaches that can't play soccer at all anymore. But at some point in their childhood, they did. And so they know how to form a drill and they know how to kick a ball. So even there, that there's a trust, there's an obvious trust that the athletes are looking for, right?
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah. I think an interesting thought that came to my head, or a thought that came to my head, interesting or not, is that a lot of times people will hire a pro rider to give them some coaching.
Yeah.
Right? And they can fill that role that you described. Like, oh, I know this person knows it. They can show it to me. And even sometimes I recognize in my rider, they just need to see another demo. They don't need more verbiage. They don't need more words. They need to see the demo. They need to see it 2 or 3 more times. And, but this is why we have a standard for riding and coaching or instructing. And that's where the expert level coach knows they just need to see something, or this is the new approach you have to take for this rider at this moment, at this time. I can describe these little nuances and refinements of the dial along the way. So just thinking about the difference between an expert instructor who can't do the riding, or actually somebody, and then an expert rider who can't do the instructing is.
Well, I like that. Like the pro rider, their choice is often quite singular. They can show it, but can they do can they do it any other way? Can they coach it any other way other than showing it? And that's where, like, I would say an expert coach, chances are they can ride it, they can show it, but they could also come up with a bunch of different ways to.
Or they might not recognize if skill-wise the rider isn't quite there yet. Because they're so used to just being able to do it and it's easy for them.
Yeah.
And they think very tactically. They're like, this is the line to do it. Pop here, it'll be good.
Yeah.
Obviously some are like more in tune than that. But I think riders who are really, really high level, they maybe don't understand the pathway to get there in the steps that an expert coach would, which can lead to some accidents along the way, which can not be ideal.
Yeah. Not recognizing if the student's ready for it, for sure. That's a huge one. But man, we could talk about this all day.
Well, I think we could. I think this is a good place to.
I'm going to go into a cornering session with some.
I think this is a good place to wrap it up for us for this one.
Yeah.
Hey, I really, really thoroughly appreciated seeing you guys together and talking and learning from you again. Paul and I do this out of just the passion for that we all share, right? And just it's wonderful to have you both here and sharing in that. And every time that I'm around, you guys will learn something. So I really thank you.
Yeah, cheers for first time. Definitely a little bit of nerves, but
First
hopefully
of
did a good
many.
job.
Yeah, great flow, Ross. Good job.
Donuts.
One final note, like we do actually now have Donuts and Bikes t-shirts.
Oh yeah.
And merch. Yeah, on the GSMBC website. If you go to the store, it hasn't arrived yet. So I'm wearing the new GS one, but
And I heard that you and Christian Payne donuts as well.
yes, we do.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you know my address.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't a donut, but I did have a really nice dessert last night for a friend's birthday. But who has a donut story? And it should be a guest donut story. So don't let us down.
Donut let you down.
Pressure's on. I'm just throwing you in the deep end.
Wait, so I still haven't gotten clarity on whether or not those who live in BC, wherever y'all two live, do you know Harmony Donuts on Longsdale Avenue in North Van?
I think
Embarrassing if you didn't.
I've heard of it. It rings a bell. It rings a bell. But I don't think I've been there.
All right. So Harmony Donut is a donut shop I visited probably 10 years ago. And
whoa, this is an old story.
This is an old donut story. But no, it's not. The main story here is I don't understand why you don't know it. And you need to go find it.
Okay.
And
Ouch.
it's like this little mom and pop donut. So you can look up Harmony Donuts
right now. I'm going to Google it.
You can Google it.
Harmony Donuts.
Yeah. And then report back. It's been 10 years.
I have a Harmony t-shirt.
I gave you a Harmony t-shirt.
You gave me a Harmony t-shirt.
I did.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Harmony donuts. Yeah.
Can you remember the donut that you had from there, Harlan?
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yeah, it was probably a cake donut with minimal sprinkles because I don't like a lot of adornment.
Oh, you're a plain donut guy.
I'm kind of a plain donut guy.
You're like the classic sugar glazed
Cake.
cake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my favorite too.
Hmm.
Maybe a little cinnamon sugar. Yeah.
That's an acceptable donut story, I guess. Yeah, there it is. It looks pretty good. I'll go check it. I'll drive down there right now.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, thanks, guys. Really appreciate your time, and good to see you as always. I look forward to doing this again.
Sounds good.
Thanks, team.
All right, that brings us to the end of another episode of Donuts and Bikes. We hope this conversation elevated your understanding of the Global Syndicate of Mountain Bike Coaches Level 4 Expert Coaching Course. We like to think that riding bikes isn't rocket science. It's really more about the pros and cons rather than the rights and wrongs. Please take care if you're using any of the information discussed in this episode, and you can find our full disclaimer at our website, the mountainbikecoachingpodcast.buzzsprout.com. Stay safe, ride smart, coach smarter, and we'll see you next time.